Hey guys, this is the Recon Jacob here, and I've decided to start a brand new series called Really That Bad. This concept is inspired by the series Really That Good by Movie Bob, except that it's on video games and not movies. Since most of my videos in the past have been pretty standalone and I haven't done Let's Plays in quite a long time, I've decided to try and do a series on my channel for a change. The game that I'm going to talk about in this episode is the infamous Sonic the Hedgehog from 2006, or more colloquially known as Sonic 06. If you somehow haven't heard of this game, it was a game released by Sega that was made to celebrate Sonic's 15th anniversary. The game had numerous bugs that were never fixed, making the game practically unplayable. It was considered by many people to be the worst game of all time. I saw a lot of gameplay walkthroughs on this game, mostly the one made by Game Grumps, back when JonTron was on that channel. But I never got round to playing that game myself. Until now. So I'm going to start off by stating the obvious, and say that this is not the worst game ever made. I think this is pretty common knowledge, and most of the people that say it's the worst game of all time are most likely exaggerating to express their distaste for this game. The only reason some people may believe it to be the worst game is because it is a part of a popular franchise. There are so many games that are 100 times worse than this game, but 99% of them you wouldn't have heard of since they are very often small titles. The entire purpose of this video is not to examine the obvious question of whether this game is the worst game ever made. It's simply to decide whether or not this game is as bad as people say it is, or if it's simply a bandwagon of hate. The camera and the controls are one of the biggest complaints people have about this game. However, when you're not doing any sort of QuickTime event or doing a super speed section, and just doing something like running around in the hub world, the camera for the most part is fine. There were only a few specific problems I ever really had with the camera, one of which was in certain levels where for some reason Sonic goes so fast that the camera can't keep up with him, so I don't know where I'm going. Another was when I was doing my first boss fight, where the camera would pan up and I would struggle to see which direction I should move Sonic in. The biggest problem with the camera isn't actually the camera itself. In fact, you have more control of the camera than you do in most Sonic games. The problem with the camera is that you almost always have to move it yourself for everywhere you move, which is not good for a Sonic game. In other Sonic titles, the camera moves automatically with little to no control of where to move it, which allows you to only have to move your character and not have to move the camera around at the same time. By not having that in Sonic 06, you always have to position your camera and wait for it to move the right angle when you change direction. This can be a big problem in some boss fights since the camera only moves at a certain speed, meaning you don't have time to turn it and you just have to blindly move in the direction you want to go in and hope you don't run into something in front of you. One thing I did to overcome this was to just push down on the right analog stick to readjust my view to go behind my character in the direction he's facing. This happens instantly, so I don't have to wait for the camera to turn. It's still a pain to do, but can be really efficient with practice. I also found that the camera clips through walls, so I wasn't able to see anything at all. The camera is also so locked onto the character's movement that if the character goes to an area where his body glitches all over the place, the camera moves in sync and does the same thing. For the controls, I actually found them to be pretty good for the most part. When in a normal section, I felt that I had full control of my character even at high speeds. The reason people complain about the controls is actually because of the camera for the reasons I stated earlier. The only real problem I had with the controls themselves were at super speed sections where I wasn't able to maneuver my character very well. There are also minor problems like the character not locking onto objects when he's supposed to. I personally found the gameplay to be fun for the most part. When I actually get to the gameplay. The main problem with the gameplay is actually what comes before it, waiting about 10 to 20 seconds for a loading screen to finish. But it's not just to load the gameplay, no, that'd be way too easy. If you're doing a mission for a civilian, the first loading screen is for them to tell you what you have to do, even though they probably already said that beforehand. Seriously, I had to wait 12 seconds just for that. Why? Then you have to wait for another loading screen to actually load the level itself. The worst experience I had with this was when I had to complete 3 trials. The test of intelligence, the test of courage, and the test of love. Although you really only have to worry about the first 2, as for the last one you just have to choose between the princess and Amy, and either option causes you to pass. I died multiple times on the first trial, but when you die, you don't go back to the beginning of the level. No. After a loading screen, you have to talk to the guy again, go through a loading screen to hear exactly what he just said, and another loading screen to load the actual damn level. After a few tries, I passed the first trial, but didn't have enough lives to complete the second one, so I had to load my last save and complete the first one again. By the time I completed all 3 trials, the game became a chore rather than a fun experience, since there isn't that much where you can actually play the game. Other sections in the game involve you snowboarding, and these sections are incredibly glitchy. You get stuck constantly and find that you won't be able to move at all. When it's not doing that, however, I find it to be an enjoyable enough experience. You don't just play as Sonic in the game, you play as other characters too, one of them being Knuckles. The controls for him and every other character are pretty much the same in terms of how easy they are to control. Unlike Sonic though, Knuckles is able to glide and climb walls. The climbing walls part is the main problem with him. A lot of the time you find yourself not being able to detach yourself from a wall, and often you find yourself climbing objects you're not supposed to be able to climb.
Look how silly this is!
Are they gone?
You have to like do... Okay. Aaron, don't leave. Aaron, don't. Aaron! I love you!
No, I'm fucking done! I'm fucking done!
No, you're not.
This is bullshit!
I'm gonna go.
This is fucking bullshit!
I can't get off!
What is this?
I can't get off!
What is this?
I'm stuck!
What is my life?
Shadow's gameplay is pretty similar to Sonic, except that he skates instead of running, but the controls are pretty much identical. He doesn't move as fast, but is able to drive vehicles. I had fun playing some sections with his character, although wasn't really enjoying the parts where he had to control the vehicles since they are quite boring. Silver is by far my least favourite character to play as, since the only way he can attack is by picking up objects and throwing them. This is extremely frustrating to do every single time. Sometimes he doesn't even pick them up successfully, and sometimes he doesn't even throw in the direction that I want him to throw them. The level design for most of the game ranges from subpar to outright terrible. However, there are a few exceptions for Sonic where the level design is actually pretty good and I find myself having fun playing them. Overall, when you're not going through a ton of loading screens, the gameplay varies from good to bad. Some parts are fun, some parts are extremely tedious and boring.
Now it is my time to return the favor. I care not what happens to me, but please heed my voice. Sonic, come back. To me. To us.
No comment. Unarguably the best aspect of this game. The main theme of this game is awesome to listen to. The rest of the music is fine and does its job for the most part. However, the way the music is actually implemented into the game is pretty subpar at times. When you're doing a certain section, the music is just placed there. Nothing you do in the game changes that music until you reach the next section that triggers the next piece of music. Most games tend to have a lot of variety in their soundtrack that depends on the actions you do in the game, like for when you're fighting enemies. The music that plays will be music that is suitable for when you're fighting, and when you're just standing idly or running around exploring the area, the music that plays will be based on this particular scenario. In Sonic 06, if you do something like standing still, the same music will still play, and it will sound really unsuitable to what's going on. So I think we can all agree that the pre-generated cutscenes look amazing visually. Many people have complained that the graphics themselves look really bad. However, despite them being a huge downgrade from the pre-generated cutscenes, I think otherwise. A lot of the games that were made in the same year looked much worse than Sonic 06. Oblivion released in the same year as Sonic 06. That game is one of my favourite games of all time, and in this day and age, the graphics on that game look downright terrible. Sonic 06, however, I found has aged pretty well after all these years. It's partly because the art style is able to be more simplistic, but overall, in terms of the graphics, the game actually looks pretty good. I felt like for the most part I had fun more often than I didn't. By no means is this game good. but it's not bad to a point where it should stand out compared to other games. I had more fun in this game than some other games I've played before, and I've had more boring and frustrating experiences in other games than this one. I found this game to be a lot more flawed when compared to other Sonic games, but nothing less than that, which is why I've come to the conclusion that Sonic 06 is not really that bad. I hope you enjoyed the first installment of this new series. If you did, please leave a like down below. If you agreed with what I said, then feel free to share this video with your friends, as it would really help me out. If you disagreed with this video, or there were some parts you all disagreed with, then feel free to comment down below, and I'd be happy to have an open discussion. If you are new to the channel, then please click that subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. So thanks for watching, and peace out.